Yo, it's Raphael with NBA Draft Junkies back again. And this is our third video together. If you missed our first two podcasts, then you can check us out. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts at, you can find us. And then if you want to watch the video, you can find us on YouTube, NBA Draft Junkies, if you're not already watching. So on the first two that we did, it's actually three videos. There's our top 10 point guards, and then we did our top 10 shooting guards. So we had to break that video up into two as far as YouTube. It's only one on the podcast, but for YouTube, we broke it up into two. And this is our third one. We're going to do the top small forwards, but this is just our opinion. I haven't talked to Joe. He hasn't talked to me about his list, and we're just going off who we think and how we are ranking the small forwards. Our lists are probably going to be totally different. If you missed the first couple, and Tyrese Maxey was an example, I may have had him as a point guard. Joe had him as a shooting guard. So we're just kind of having fun and just kind of giving our opinion about the players and the positions. So with no further ado, Joe, introduce yourself to the audience.
Hey guys, I'm Joe Gomez. Been helping here, contributing with Draft Junkies here for a little while now, and just getting excited here to get closer to the bubble, and getting back into all that stuff here with playoffs and everything with that. So excited to go through these next few positions. We're going to do our top 10s on small forwards and power forwards and centers and go from there.
All right, sounds good. All right, so let's go from the bottom. You can go first at number 10. Who's number 10 on your list?
So my number 10, and I'm going to start off my small forwards with saying that I had a couple guys that were tweeners, where you could see him as a 4 in college, but projecting more as a 3 in the NBA for whatever reason. So I got a couple guys that I kind of on the fence about, but I started my number 10 off with Jordan Mora at Louisville. Some guys have him higher on their boards. He's one for me that I think he's a true small forward. Just he's 6'7", about 220. He shot over 40% from three. He can handle the ball. He gets downhill and gets to the cup. I think he's got some work to do on the defensive end, and from a quickness and lateral explosiveness that might hurt him on the NBA level trying to guard NBA wings. But he really came on strong here this year, and really he scored pretty efficiently for Louisville. Had a few big games. I know he put up, I think, 25 in back-to-back games early in ACC play. And he had a pretty good season overall. So I like his game. He comes off screens. He can shoot on the move. And like I said, he gets downhill. He's not a shooter that settles. So I think he's got a good chance here in the league and can be a good 3-and-D guy, for a considerable future in his NBA career.
And I actually had him as a 4. I think that's where
– Did you?
Yeah, I think that's where he may have the biggest advantage at in the NBA.
Small ball 4.
Small ball 4. I kind of base my positions sometimes off what position will this player play if they were in the closing lineup. And I just think that he has the best advantage as a 4. But, he's a tweener. He may start at the 3. It's not a bad choice. And I think if you would have asked 10 people which position they think he is, I wouldn't be shocked if 5 people say he's a 3, 5 people say he's a 4. And it kind of goes back to my pick. And I think, who I have at number 10 is Robert Woodard from Mississippi State. Mm-hmm. And I think he can easily be a 4 in the closing lineup. Similar, I think he's just a classic 3-and-D guy. He strong frame. He should be able to defend multiple positions. He should be able to defend like the 4s that like to post up because of his strength. But then he knocks down open threes. Not a flashy guy. He's just a hard worker, blue-collar guy that knocks down open shots. He can post up a little bit. He's active, but that's who I have at number 10.
Yeah. So I actually had Robert Woodard at my number 9.
Perfect transition.
It is, man. Hey, he's an explosive athlete. They have it listed at 230, and I think he's pushing closer to 240. He's a dunker. He's a transition guy. He gets up and down the floor. He shot 64% from the free throw line, so that's something he'd have to work on. But, I really like him. I kind of compared him to Wilson Chandler coming out of DePaul. In that same frame, Wilson's a bigger three that, was kind of one of those guys that was a small ball four before small ball fours were a thing.
Right.
But I really like Robert Woodard, man. I think his athleticism and, it'll be a good transition for him going from college to the NBA. So I think he's got an opportunity to be, a guy that can guard both spots, the three and the four, and he's athletic enough to get down and guard guard points and twos. So, yeah, I like him, but that's who I had at 9.
It's crazy because both of the guys that we've mentioned, if this draft were 10, 15 years ago, they'd be considered tweeners. And it would probably hurt their draft stock because the game was so, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't positionless like it is today. So my number 9 is, man, fans are probably going to kill me on this one because I had him so high on my last mock. And even though games haven't been played and there's no way to say that his stock has went up or down, but he's dropped to number 9 on my list. And I did a video or a podcast with the Lakers Fast Break probably less than 60 days ago. And we had our top small forwards. And I had this guy as high as number 4. And now he drops to number 9 on my list. And I'm still high on him, on his talent and skill set, but it's Jaden McDaniels. I can't say there's not much I don't like about him. I like his skill set. There's not many guys that just move the way he does at his height and his skill set. But just kind of watching the film again, his talent didn't match his numbers. Like he just wasn't as productive as I thought he would be. I thought he would be a top 10 pick coming into the draft. But he's also someone that I could see him, a team taking him in the lottery, but I could also see him dropping significantly. And especially if he doesn't have the opportunity to work out and teams don't have the luxury of being able to see him up close. But he's fallen to number 9 to me, and it could end up coming back to haunt me a year from now because he's super talented, man. Like he's like the KD comparisons, I've seen those. I think that's a lot of pressure. I think talent-wise, I mean, he doesn't shoot as well as KD.
No.
Talent-wise, skill for skill, I don't think there's that much of a difference outside of the shooting. The difference to me is like KD is a dog. Like he knows how
he has been a dog.
Yeah, he always has been. He doesn't float. He imposes his will on every single game. And that's one of the areas that Jaden McDaniels doesn't do. If he did that, then in my opinion, he would be a top 5 pick. But for some reason, he just doesn't impact the game like his talent should. So that's why he's number 9 on my list.
Well, if people are going to be mad at you, they're going to be mad at me because he slid to number 8 on my list.
Okay, we're on the same page then.
Yeah, we're on the same page right there. He was somebody who I had, I'd say back in November, December, I had him looking at like number 3. And I thought he was for sure a top 10 pick. And, I just, like you said, I don't think his talent level matched his numbers and his production for where I thought he would have been. I think Washington kind of had a little crowd there. You had Quade Green, you had Isaiah Stewart. I mean, there's a lot of guys that needed the ball and that would be kind of shared in that. But his length, his handle, his ability to get to the rim, he can score at all 3 levels. Yeah, man. I think he kind of slid based on that and the fact that I don't think he's going to come in and be, a starter right away on a decent team. He's going to need a couple years to get stronger, just like KD did. I think they have him listed at 185. So, I just think he's going to have some work to do there. And I think he led the Pac-12 in fouls per game. which is a lot of him just being out of position. And, you know, like you said earlier about him kind of floating through games, I think that put him in bad spots sometimes. But, yeah, man, I had him at number 8, so about the same.
What do you think his ceiling is?
Ooh, that's tough. I mean, I see him as I think his ceiling is being a Trevor Ariza type starter that can prolong his career. The thing his game today, I don't think suits where his game needs to be in order for him to stick. If that makes any sense. I think he's going to have to alter his game a little bit. He's not going to be able to take contested 19-footers, 10 seconds into the shot clock. I just think he needs to alter his game to be able to have a longevity and have a career in the NBA. I don't see him as a star. If he could be a starter in the league for 10 years, 12 years, I think that's probably his ceiling.
See, I think he's more skilled to me than Trevor Ariza. He could probably beat Trevor Ariza in a one-on-one game.
Today, for sure.
But the difference is Trevor has a defined role. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if – and I mean, he's young, so it's hard to say.
Yeah, it's hard.
But the way he plays, I don't know if he'd settle for a defined role.
That's what I'm saying. So I don't think he'd have to change.
Yeah, and I think it would be good for him to have Trevor Ariza type career because Ariza's been in the league forever. He might be, outside of LeBron and Haslam, and now that Vince is gone, he might be the longest tenured player in the league because I think he was in the 2004 draft, which is like –
Was it 04?
Maybe, or even if it's 5.
Yeah,
2005, that's still, 15. So, but I think with Ariza, he developed. He was just an athlete when he first got to the league, and then he ended up, settling as a role as a 3-and-D defender. And he's played a long time, and he still has, in my opinion, he still has a few more years left in the tank. He could play 18, 19 years. McDaniels he needs the ball in his hands. He's a shot creator. I don't know if he'd be fine just settling for open threes and attacking closeouts. Right. To me, his ceiling, best case scenario would be Brandon Ingram. That would be best case scenario. I think they have a similar build.
They have a similar style.
Skill set. Yep. Ingram was a better shooter in college, but then he struggled when he first got to the NBA with his 3-point shooting. Well, and then he didn't like taking threes. He liked shooting off the dribble and, just kind of playing pick and rolls. And I think that's what McDaniels would prefer. Is he good enough to where you're going to run those type of plays for him and give him those type of actions? And only time will tell. It just will depend on how hard he works. But he reminds me of his brother. To me, they're very, very similar. I really can't tell them apart. And the same with his brother. The talent and skill level and skills are there. It's just a matter of putting it together and getting it to fit into a team situation. So maybe he would have been better in the early days of the NBA where you play a lot of iso ball. But then again, is he strong enough to really play iso ball? So he's a tough choice. But like I said, and I've been saying, talent-wise, it's there. It's just putting it together and fitting in the team system, and then making sure that he imposes his will on games instead of floating, and that would determine how far he goes. So for me at number 8, and I think you had this player as a shooting guard. I have him as a 3, and it's Leandro Balmero. And I had him going to Utah in my last mock draft, which I'm going to have to redo that. But like you said in the last episode, smart player, high IQ. His game fits the team concept, good passer. He needs to improve his shooting, but he's a guy that I think can plug and play. I don't know how much he'll contribute right away as a rookie. It depends on where he goes in the draft and what team he goes on. But I definitely think that his game suits the modern NBA. He's a ball mover.
Yeah.
He's active, good decision maker. And anybody that's been following my site for a while knows I like wing ball handlers. I like guys that can make plays on the wing, secondary playmakers that you can run a pick and roll that can complement a scoring point guard. So I have Balmero at number 8.
Yep. Yep. I like that. I think I have him more as a 2 because I see his size and his athleticism. He needs to be on guarding 2s, I think. Not right now. I don't think he can. I think he's got to develop a little bit on that end of the floor. But that's why I had him at a 2, and I think he fits. Again, there really isn't a position on the floor. You got a point, you got some wings, and you got usually one big. So I think he fits any of those spots for sure.
Yep.
So my number 7. I had a guy who he slid down my board because I don't think he's as complete of a player as he probably needs to be in order to be in the top 3 or 4 of a position for a draft. But I've got Tyler Bay out of Colorado at number 7. I know
I have him as a 4.
Yeah, so I mean he's a 4 the way he plays. He plays in the post, he plays dirty, and he hustles, he runs the floor. He's got a high motor, but he's 6'6", and I don't see him being he kind of reminds me of Andre Roberson just because he can't stretch the floor, and he defends extremely well. I think he's probably one of the best defenders in the draft. But the fact that he can't space the floor and is essentially reluctant to shoot a shot outside the paint makes it kind of tough for him in a fit for right now. So the way the game's played, but I project him as a 3 just based on his size, but his game is actually more of a 4. I think he shot maybe 1-3 a game, if that. One thing he does do well is he attacks the bucket and he gets downhill, so he gets to the free throw line. And he shoots 74-75% from the line. Rebounds pretty well for his size, and like I said, he has a high motor, so he wins loose balls, and he wins tip balls and 50-50s, and those are things that help teams win. So I do like him. I just think he's got some work to do to become a complete player. But yeah, I had him at number 7.
See, I have him as a 4, just because I think like as a 3, you want your 3 to be able to space the floor. He shot 41% from 3 this year, but it was only 1 attempt per game.
Yeah.
But he reminds me of Sean Marion. He reminds me of Marion simply because he's active. He doesn't need the ball. He's going to cut. He's going to run the floor. I think if there's switches, like if you get a guard on him on a switch, he can take him to the post. He's a lob threat. He's just active. You don't have to run anything for him. Just, get him moving. And I think that I don't think he's a threat as a 3, like I said, because he doesn't space the floor. But if he can become like a 32% shooter from 3 and he plays the 4, then I think he becomes a weapon. But again, this is just shows how difficult it is to put these prospects into a box or into a position. But I have him as a 4. I actually have him as a first-round pick also. So I really like him. I think it was maybe like October, November when I did my first video on him. And so I thought that, he was a first-round pick earlier in the season. I was staying in China at the time, and they played a game against Arizona State in Shanghai. And I'm kicking myself because I missed it. It would have been a dope opportunity to see him play live and then also just watch a college basketball game in China. So he'll be on my power forward list that we'll probably do within the next few days. So I'm not mad at that pick. For me, my number 7 is a player that you had on your shooting guard list, and it's Josh Green, and from Arizona. And, we talked about him in the last episode. Good athlete, plays hard, runs the floor. The test for him is just to improve as a shooter. He's not a bad shooter,
Mhm.
but I think that he needs to, just make some improvements to be a 3-and-D guy. Not much of a ball handler. I think he's a pretty decent passer. And but I see him as a guy that will have a role in the NBA as a 3-and-D athletic transition rim runner guy that you can run some backdoor lob plays for. So I have him as number 7 on my list.
Gotcha. Yep. Yeah, I got for number 6 here, I've got a guy who you probably have as a 4. I got Patrick Williams out of Florida State, who, he's 6'8", 215, 220. He is a bigger body, He's only 18. I think he projects to be, a mid first rounder. I don't remember where you had him in your last mock, but I
think
see
I had
him
him
being
going to Minnesota. So I think based off that, it's like 17 or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, 17 and 19. But he shoots really well from the free throw line. I think he was an 85% free throw shooter or somewhere in there. He's got good mechanics on his jumper. He doesn't shoot it a lot. But he's a transition athlete. He's a good defender. He's got a high IQ. I think he was top 5 in the ACC in blocks. But I think he can really earn his keep in the league with his motor and the fact that, he's kind of relentless. And at Florida State, they play 10 or 11 deep. He's only playing 20 minutes a night. But he's all over the floor, and he can guard in open space, and that's something I think that's going to make a big impact in the NBA, even in his first, as a rookie. So I like his game. I think he's got a good fit. I think he shot low 30% from 3, so he's got to become a better shooter. Even just knocking down corner threes and being able to space the floor. And keep the defenders honest a little bit, he'll be able to stay on the floor with his athleticism and everything else that he does. So I had Patrick Williams there at 6.
And I have him. It's funny, when I did my list, I made my list a few weeks back, and just looking at my notes, I had him as a small forward and a power forward. So when we do the 4 list, I'm going to have to adjust it because in this particular episode, I have him as a small forward, and I'll get to where I have him ranked later. But at number 6, I have his teammate, Devin Vassell. And he was higher on my list that I made a few weeks ago. He's kind of slipped down, and because Patrick Williams has moved up. And Vassell, 3-and-D guy, he can shoot the pull-up jumper. He can attack the closeout and make smart plays. Good defender. And I think that's his calling card. And that's the thing that he'll be able to hang his hat on, is his defense. I think he's a solid role player. So I have him at number 6 on my list.
That's easy because I had him at number 5 on mine. So, I think, he somebody that is in between the 2 and the 3 spot. He's a shooter. He runs the floor well, plays really well off the ball. He's a versatile defender too, which I really think that he's going to have a calling card defensively. He gets in passing lanes, and I think so. He's got the ability to be a 3-and-D guy that can guard multiple positions. I kind of thought he reminded me of Otto Porter. I don't know if it was just his body type and frame, but he reminded me a lot of Otto Porter. But I had him at number 5.
Okay, so we're getting closer to having a similar list. All right, so for me at number 5, and this is a player that I kind of was late to the party on. I saw NBA Draft Twitter talking about him, and I kind of watched him a little bit, and I was like, okay, I don't see it. But then as the season went on, and actually he'll be my next video breakdown as far as player profiles, but I have my number 5 is Sadiq Bay from Villanova. I think that he's another one of these guys that is the 3, but I can see him playing the 4 in closing lineups. I like him as a shooter. He was super efficient from 3, shot over 40% from 3. He's a defender. He can post up a little bit, and he can make plays off the dribble. He's not quick. I think the downside is he lacks like that pop, burst, and explosiveness to beat guys off the dribble. And it's kind of funny, if he can't beat you off the dribble, then it turns into a post up. Like he just kind of backs you down.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of holding him back a little bit. If he were a more explosive, poppier, that's not even a word,
Yeah.
but had more like the quick twitch pop athleticism, I think he'd be a higher pick. But I think he's a safe pick, and he can make plays for others if you need him to. I mean, there were times where Villanova had him basically playing point guard, so I like him. I think like he would be a good fit in a team like Dallas, to where I like Dodo at the 3, but he can knock down open shots, and then if Dallas wants to run like off the ball plays for Luka or even like Seth or whatever, he can bring the ball up court. He can run pick and rolls. He can make the lob play. I think he's a weapon, but he's the type of player that is what I like to call a complimentary all-star. He may never make the all-star team, but he's a player that his game and his style of play complements everybody. I think you can put him next to any type of player and he'll be able to fit right in. So that's why I have Sadiq Bay at number 5.
And I'll follow that up with Sadiq Bay at number 4. I really like him. I saw him 4 times this year live.
Where'd you see him at?
Torch. I saw him at Creighton.
Okay.
I saw him he had Creighton. I saw non-conference against Michigan. And then I saw him again against Creighton up there, which was he torched them up there. I mean, I got to look back and see how many he had, but he probably had 23 on like 6 or 7 shots. He's just a mismatch, you know what I mean? And he, like you said, if he can't get by you with the dribble, all he's going to do is spin, dribble, turn. He's going to back you down, little step back floater off, 6 or 8 feet away from the bucket. So his game's versatile, and he shoots 75, 80% from the line, which obviously is going to carry over to the league. I mean, takes care of the ball. But like you said, he's not a bouncy athlete. He's not going to explode on you and dunk on somebody, but he's athletic enough. I see him as finishing games as a 4 and being able to stretch the floor, handle the ball. He does make plays for other guys. I would really like to see him in Portland.
That would be great.
With CJ and Dame, I think he'd be a perfect guy at the 3 spot for him. But yeah, I like his game, and like I said, he's torched guys for giving him a little bit of space, and he's got that weird jumper. He kind of shoots it in the front of his, almost like his chin,
and it's flat.
Kind of brings it up to the middle, and it's flat. And the way he shoots it is that he shoots it from like his face, the front of his face, instead of being up and elevated. So, but like you don't want to fix it if it ain't broke. So
right, and I think
how that looks.
And I think it only hurts him when he's trying to shoot off the dribble. Like when he's trying to, like if he's like spotting up and even on the move, I think it's fine. But I noticed that if he's trying to, shoot off the bounce or take somebody off the dribble, that's when he's not as efficient in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I think when he tries to attack the rim, I think, people may give him space to pull up. And then that's when, if they have length, then they can probably alter a shot. But I don't know how often he's going to shoot off the dribble in the NBA because, some teams are totally against the mid-range shot. And then if he does, it's probably, where he goes to the post and he posts up a smaller guy and shoots over the top of him. But he's a winner, man. And I think that Villanova players, they're not really stars in the NBA, but they're all solid contributors that they know how to play winning basketball. And so I would love to see him in Portland. I mean, I'm a Blazers fan, so I'm a little biased. And I kind of want I want the Blazers to make the playoffs and upset the Lakers in the first round. That would be my dream scenario. And so I in the last mock, the Blazers aren't in the playoffs. And so I had Portland, I think they would be like 12th. So I didn't think he'd go that high. But I would love to see that simply because as a Blazers fan, I feel like one of the issues that Portland has had over the last few years is that they didn't have a four-man that could make a play. So I remember watching the series against the Pelicans where they double-teamed Dame and they trapped him. And then the four men were either Aminu or Harkless. And they can knock down open shots. They're decent shooters. They're not like knockdown shooters, but they were switchy defenders that made Portland a pretty decent defensive team. But the problem is they couldn't make a play for others when they had the ball. And so I've always been wanting Portland to find a four-man. And now I think they're just going to stick with this lineup of Zach Collins at the four with Nurkic. And then I think Melo's going to play the three once the season starts back up. So that doesn't help out what they need as far as having another passer. And I mean, the Blazers are always like towards the bottom in the league in assists. They play a lot of one-on-one. So having another playmaker, another guy that can make passes to teammates and just create opportunities for others. I'm going on a tangent here. That would be ideal for Portland. So I hope you're right. I hope he falls to the Blazers. That would be a great situation because, I think Portland is a team that, they have a good development program, but they need to win now. They don't need to.
They don't have time to wait.
Yeah, so they want somebody that can come in and contribute right away. So I hope you're right. And like I said, I got on a tangent here because I'm a Blazers fan, and you just gave me all these ideas when you mentioned that you'd like to see it in Portland.
Right.
So is it on me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's my number 4. My number 4 is Aaron Nesmith from Vanderbilt, defined role, knockdown shooter. And like you said, you know what you're going to get from him. Great shooter. He's coming off a knee injury, but thankfully it's 2020 and a torn ACL isn't, as devastating as it was in, the early 2000s or even like late 90s. I remember guys like Terrell Brandon, who was on his way to having a great career. Tore his ACL, was never the same. So I have him as my number 4. And I think
I've got go ahead.
Yeah, I just think that you know what you're going to get. And if you put him in the right team, in the right situation, his gravity alone is going to make everyone around him better because you can't leave him open. But he's someone that the perfect fit for him would be if he fell late in the draft and went to, a team like I have him going to Orlando in my last mock, but if he went to a team like the Lakers or the Bucks, his outside shooting would definitely open it up for their stars and allow him to play in the playoffs. But where I have him going to Orlando in my last mock, they need some outside shooting, and then with Fournier possibly being a free agent soon, he would be a good fit there. So I like Nesmith.
I don't see him falling that far. He's too good of a shooter to fall that far,
Yeah.
I actually had him at number 3.
Okay.
Kind of like you said, man, he's really good at moving without the basketball, and that it tends to pull defenses away, and you can run a double on one side of the floor and drag the entire defense after him, like if it was Klay Thompson running off the screen.
Yep.
I'm not saying he's that good of a shooter, but saying that he has that same kind of gravitational pull to a defense because they see him flying off a double. I just think that, he's got the length, the size, the athleticism is there enough to defend on the other end, to stay in this league a very long time and have a very good career, being a high-level shooter that knocks down shots all over the floor. And, he's not going to be a complete, green light on the defensive end. Like he's going to be able to guard some folks. So I like him. I think, I think he's NBA ready too. I think he comes in right away and can play on a productive team and have a defined role, like you said. So yeah, I have him at number 3.
Okay. So my number 3 is, and he's the big riser on my list, Patrick Williams. And he could be a 4, he could be a 3. He's young, he's like 18. And I know I've mentioned it before, but I've had the opportunity to watch him work out up and close and personal last summer. So I think I want to say I saw him for like 3 days. It may have been more than that. Really good kid, really quiet. And I didn't see it. So I remember my friend was like, man, this kid, he's going to be a first rounder next year. And I just didn't see it. I thought he shot the ball okay. I saw he was athletic, but he's more of a gamer. Like just watching the workouts, like I said, he was good. I didn't see first round pick. But as the season progressed, I saw what he does on the floor and how he can impact the game. He plays hard. I just think like the sky's the limit for him because he could end up being a really good shooter that can put the ball on the floor. He can make pull-ups and he can defend multiple positions. I do think that he'll start off his career as a 3, but I think eventually as the league gets smaller or even, like I keep saying, in closing lineups, he'll be a 4. But then you never know. I mean, the league could switch back to bigs. You just never know. It may depend on how well Houston does. If Houston makes a big playoff run, then the small ball will be here to stay. But then again, like if LA makes a run and they end up, dominating defensively because they have, LeBron, of course, LeBron. But if their big man rotation is the reason they have a deep playoff run, then you may see the NBA transition back to bigger lineups. But either way, I think Patrick Williams can be a 3 or a 4. And he's, like I keep saying, he's young. He's like 18. There are prospects in the 2021 draft who are older than him. I mean, the way some of these kids have been held back, there may be guys in the 2022 class who are the same ages as he is. But I think he has a high ceiling. Like I said, I mean, a switchy floor space. Oh, I can't even talk. A switchy floor spacer that can put the ball on the floor is so valued in today's NBA. And I think that's a role that he'll be able to play for a long time.
What do you think him being at Florida State and playing in a 10, 11-man rotation, how do you think that helped or hurt his development?
Well, I think it hurt him statistically. Because, obviously the more you play.
All those guys.
Yeah. So I think in that way it kind of hurt him. But I think it also helped because, at Florida State, you have to earn your minutes. And so if you don't play well, then you could easily slide out the rotation. So I think that, it helped and it hurt him. But obviously I'm saying it helped him more because he shot up my draft board and I have him as my number 3 small forward. So the decision to go to Florida State worked out for him, in my opinion.
Good deal. I agree with you, man. I think if you're in a 10-man rotation and you know that you have high-level 4-star guys sitting on the bench at the 12th man spot and you don't play well for a week straight, you're going to lose those minutes. And I think that has something to do with these guys constantly having it turned on because they know they have somebody right behind them. Not to say that some of these other teams don't, or none of these other guys don't, but you look at a team like Duke who has a short bench and you got some guys that maybe float through a couple weeks of practice and don't have the best games, but there's not that, 9, 10, 11 guy that can come in here and really give you a run for your minutes. where at Florida State they have those kind of guys. So I really like Patrick Williams, and he's probably – my list is probably from like 10 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
The last week or so I've been watching more of his film, and I probably would slide him up a little further. Not quite to 3, but I think he's definitely – I think he's going to be a lottery pick. I'm going to say top 15 in this draft. So, yep, it's my number 3.
All right. So who's your number 2?
So at number 2, I've got Isaac Okoro out of Auburn. He's a big kid, athletic kid. I think this year, I didn't really know who he was coming out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so seeing him, watching his film, seeing how he impacts games without the ball, and without, things that he does that aren't in the stat column. He defends the floor really well. He moves his feet laterally really well. Off the ball, I mean, he'll go from help side underneath the bucket to hedging and recovering back. I mean, defensively, he's a monster. At 6'6", and I think he's got close to a 7-foot wingspan. He's going to be really tough defensively in the league. I think he needs to end up at a team where he's got some guards around him that can help him set him up, I guess, for easy buckets. He's not, doesn't have the best shooting form. Atlanta would be good. I like him in Washington too. If that's somehow, I don't even know where would they be picking. I don't even know. If he gets Washington.
Now that Bill has decided not to play in Orlando.
Exactly.
And I was actually kind of shocked by that, simply because I thought with the whole Nets situation, with all their guys not playing, it gives Washington an opportunity to slide up in the playoffs. But I guess for them, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so they don't want to.
Berton's not playing. Wall's not playing. So, yeah, Washington would be a pretty good situation for him. I like him in Atlanta. I mean, I just think that the Hawks need tremendous help on defense and on the wing. And so it's his hometown. I think they would need a defensive role player more than they need scoring. But then again, someone could say, well, they took DeAndre Hunter last year and Cam Reddish. They don't need another wing. I don't know. I just know that they need help on defense. And so they're gambling on Capella being able to provide rim protection, but they still need help on the wing. So
you think Capella is going to be like Tyson Chandler was for the Mavs?
I don't know. I mean, I think
fix all the problems.
I don't know if he can fix it all, but hey, Capella can move those feet on switches. I mean, I think that was the key to that series when Houston took Golden State 7, was that Capella was able to move his feet. He just hurt them on offense a little bit because they didn't have the spacing that they wanted. Because I mean, Draymond is great at taking away their pick and roll, and then when they start switching to like a more so of an isolation offense. But anyway, I can get off topic on that one. But yeah, that's why unless Capella is Tyson Chandler, 2011 Tyson Chandler, then they may not need to draft, a good wing defender. But that's a lot to ask for. So I still think they need to take a wing. Okoro is my number 2 also. I've seen the Kawhi Leonard comparisons. It's tough to make that comparison simply because, I mean, the strides that Kawhi has made offensively, because he came into the league as like a 4-man, good rebounder, and the work that he put in on his jumper, I mean, clearly nobody saw this. I mean, if they did, he would have been, top 1 or 2 pick in that draft. But yeah, if Okoro can have the same type of progression, then that's a huge win for Atlanta. But that's a lot to ask for. I think, his shot is the biggest weakness. I like him as a playmaker, though. I think that he can make plays for others. He's a good passer. He had an impact on Auburn. I mean, you can see that their record and how well they played when he was on the floor, and the difference that it made on their record when he wasn't playing. And so, yeah, I mean, defensively, he has potential to be an all-league defender, and guys that can switch and guard multiple positions is so important, as we mentioned before. But his shooting is the key, and it's up to him, and it's up, a good development program to make sure that he's getting in the gym and knocking down 400 or 500 shots a day. And then I think that he could be what I like to call again is an all-star complementary player. I don't know if he's like an all-star, but I just think he'll play winning basketball. He'll change the culture in Atlanta just from a defensive perspective.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right, so obviously our number one is going to be the same. I'll let you go first.
So I got Denny Atija, which I always say his name wrong. But I got him, he's 6'8", 6'9", playmaker. I really just love his IQ, and he's an above advanced passer. I mean, he makes reads that most 18-year-old kids can't. He sees plays one or two steps before they happen. And I think for him in the league, being a wing that can run a pick and roll, that can lead your team some nights and assist because he has that vision and because he knows how to probe a defense, which he's really good at. He's always getting downhill. He's kind of always in attack mode. I really love his intangibles too, just watching, Tel Aviv. And I know that he just played, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago. And he's shooting the ball really well after this quarantine break. You can tell he's been in the gym. I think he shot over 50% these last 2 weeks or so.
Yep.
Short sample size, but he's been in the gym. You can tell. That's really if he can improve on his three-point shot and his free throws, especially. He's shooting under 60% from the free throw line. But he improves those things, and I think he's an all-star level guy. He's got the intangibles, and he's got the ability to switch defensively and play multiple positions. And then offensively, I just think he's a star, man. I hate to say it, but he reminds me of Luka in the way he moves and some of the reads he can make. He's nowhere near I don't think the true scorer that Luka is, but he just reminds me of his mannerisms. Their speed is similar. They don't have that twitchy pop, but they really can get their spots because of their IQ. But I really like him, man. I think he's going to be an all-star, and he's going to be I'd call him I don't know, who would you compare him to? I don't have a good comparison.
I don't either. I mean, Luka's the
just because they're similar heights,
Yeah, and then they're both the European success and
right.
Different roles though. I mean, I think Luka's a definite A1, and I don't know if Abdia is that, but he didn't get a chance to, and Luka really would not have had the opportunity to if it wasn't for Sergio Llull tearing his ACL. And so if that doesn't happen, I mean, Llull was the EuroLeague MVP the season before. So Luka would have been the number 2 if Llull was healthy. And then with Abdia, I mean, he's on a good team. So I mean, he still has Omari on his team, Quincy Acey, and the last few games since the break, he's really had an opportunity to show his full skill set. I didn't feel like he had that full opportunity, but also you can tell he's put in work. I mean, he was posting the videos on social media of him, working on his jumper and knocking down threes consistently. And he's shown it in games. Now, some of the games, I mean, I know they lost one a couple of days ago, and then the competition in the Israeli league isn't the greatest. It's not the EuroLeague by any means. It's not the ACB in Spain. But he still has been able to show flashes of everything he does. I think he's an underrated athlete. I think that a lot of people aren't mentioning his speed in the open court. I mean, he's not going to be super fast or
a John Wall speed.
Yeah, but
he's not
who
flying.
is at that height and that size. But I think in the open court, he's definitely a weapon whether he's
Mm-hmm.
running the floor without the ball or if he gets a rebound. And that's when he's really a threat. Once he gets the rebound, he has the speed to go coast to coast. And by him being such a good passer, he can make plays for others. And I mean, the free throw shooting has been mentioned before. It's like under 50%. And the mechanics aren't broken. And he's answered some questions. Like, it's a small sample size. It may be like 6 games or something like that. But he's answered some questions about his jumper. If he can maintain it, and the fact that nobody else is playing, his stock is going to
Yeah,
skyrocket.
it's got to be flying. It's got to be.
Because, I mean, scouts and general managers are all human, and we've seen guys end up getting drafted higher based off of how they performed in the NCAA tournament,
Mm-hmm.
because it's it's your last impression. And so
Yep.
the last impression for him may help him out. And I had him going 6 in my mock. No, maybe 7. 6 or 7.
Where to?
New York. Oh, and the Knicks fans on my YouTube page are killing me about that. If it's not Melo, they don't want to hear it. And but he could end up being a top 3 pick. I would not be shocked if he ends up going top 3 just because of what he brings to the table. I mean, I think he's the most versatile offensive player in the draft. I like.
You think the Knicks are the best fit? Do you think the Knicks are the best fit for him?
Well, it just depends on where they pick. I mean, the Knicks need a point guard, obviously, first and foremost. But I think that I think the Knicks would be a good fit. If he's able to knock down jumpers like he has been the last few games, and then RJ Barrett needs to definitely improve as a shooter. But Cleveland would possibly be a good fit because right now their small forward is Cedi Osman, and I'm not a big fan of Cleveland's backcourt. I don't think either one of those guys like to pass. And so adding someone that can be the playmaker and allow Garland to kind of be more so of a secondary ball handler, even though he's the point guard, I think Cleveland would be a good fit. I think he can play anywhere, especially if, like I said, if he can continue the progress he's made as a shooter, he can play anywhere. But also, I feel like his shooting percentage is low because he takes a lot of contested off the dribble threes. Same with Luka. Like I've had this conversation once where someone said Lonzo Ball is a better shooter than Luka. And if you look at their percentage wise, he is, because Lonzo Ball, he ended up shooting like 38% from 3 this year. And Luka is in probably 33, 34 range, maybe even lower. But their shots are totally different. Yeah. Luka's taking all contested side step
Nobody's
threes.
Within 8 feet of Lonzo.
Yeah, Lonzo is
they let Lonzo shoot.
Exactly. So I think that's why percentages don't always tell the story. And Avdia does take a lot of contested shots. He loves to shoot off the dribble, but in this playoff run that they've made in Israel lately, he hasn't been taking those shots. He's been knocking down the open shots, and he's just been doing everything that he needs to do to increase his draft stock. So like I said, if he ends up as a top 3 pick based off of how he's performed the last couple of weeks, I wouldn't be shocked at all.
I wouldn't be either, man. I'm with you.
So who do you compare him to? Well, I know you had mentioned Luka. Who will be your baseline comparison?
Man, that's tough. I don't know, man. That's a hard one. I actually hadn't even thought about that. Like, who would be his floor, right? Yeah. I mean, you always want to go towards the European guys. His style is different. I mean, you see him take a lot of like off the wrong foot floaters, and he takes some different types of shots. And for being a dude that's 6'9", coming off the wing, you don't really see it. I mean, I don't know, man. That's tough. You're gonna have to answer that one. I don't know.
It's tough. I actually don't have one, to be honest with you, because like I said, he posts up and then and he likes to post up and he plays hard. And you can't question his motor, his activity, and he has this swag to him. Like right now, his swagger's on 100. Like his confidence is sky high, and I like that about him. Quincy Acey is a friend of mine, and so once I get an opportunity, I want to ask Quincy about, what does he think? Because Quincy has, he played at least 5-6 years in the NBA. He's seen the NBA. He's played with some good teammates, and so I would like to get his opinion about Avdia. And then, I don't know Amari, but Amari has definitely, was a high level player. He's played with, Hall of Fame point guard. He's seen, Melo up close. So I would love to see what those guys think of him, because he's their best player right now. I know Amari's an advanced age, but he's their best player. And so which they should win the Israeli League. They shouldn't have any issues, but like I said, he may go out as the MVP of the playoffs for the Israeli League. So
if that happens, then he's definitely going to be a top 3, maybe 4 if he wins the MVP for sure. Because that's you can't get that stock any higher.
Yep. Yeah. So, last impression.
Yep.
Well, speaking of last impression, do you have anything to add? I think this list wasn't as different as the last one, but obviously 5 through 10, that our lists are going to be totally different. But for the most part, our top 1, 2, 3 are usually consistent. Even though I had, I think the biggest difference is I had on the same list Williams at 3, and then you had him at 7.
I had him at 6. 6, I think.
So that's probably the biggest difference we've had so far. Yeah. Other than that, our first two has been consistent, which the next list is where it could be a bigger difference. We'll do power forwards next. So I think there could be a difference, and it may be all over the place, because I know for my power forward list, you have a couple guys as 3s that I have as 4. So I'm curious to see how that turns out. But to those that are listening, thanks for tuning in. We are on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on Google Podcasts. We're on wherever you can get your podcast at, but we're also on YouTube. So for those that are watching NBA Draft Junkies YouTube channel, thank you. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Me and Joe have some cool content coming up. We plan on, dropping these podcasts once or twice a week. I'm going to say once a week at the very minimum. We just want to, our goal is to be the best NBA draft website, podcast, YouTube channel out there. So we're going to outwork everybody else and provide you with the best content. So please subscribe if you're not subscribed. Thanks for tuning in. This is Raphael Barlow, and NBA Draft Junkies are out.